Let me ask you a question. Do you have a specific routine for studying poker? Because if not, you should definitely look at implementing one. The way I find it most useful to do it is to go through a drill in a trainer like GTO Wizard, where you can pretty much simulate any spot you would like in poker. Today, I'm looking at the low jack versus big blind continuation bets. So low jack raise pre-flop, big blind called, flop comes, big blind checks. What would you do in this spot? You can train with me, see how you would do. Let's jump right into it.
And GTO Wizard is really kind to us today. Look at this. We start the hand with quads, so I think we can probably c-bet here. We get called. The flush comes in at this point. I mean, we have the nuts. We can hope that he has something. I would go with a small bet here once again. And I should have gone bigger, but basically I can do whatever I want. I mean, I have quads after all, so this wasn't a very interesting one to start with. This one's more interesting. We have kings on ace, 8-7 on this board. I do want to bet quite a lot, but not everything, so I'm happy to check this one. Well, we get bailed out, so our run good continues. I wish I had that run good when I play actual poker. Now, I think we have to go for quite a bit of value. I am going for bet 76. And we get raised, and at this point I don't really want to re-raise, so I think the optimal play is to just call, but no, that's not the optimal play. And when he goes 13.5, so we lose to 5-6 now, but would he really have checked 5-6? Maybe of diamonds, but I do think we have to go for value here. The question is only, should we jam or not? If we jam, can we get called by two pair, or a lower set? So I think there's plenty of hands that can call us, so I will just jam. And he did have a flush draw, but let's see what we should have done. So here we would mainly check on the flop, that's fine, but here it would even overbet. Okay, so this is it. So I went bet 76% and solver would even overbet. So we got raised, and it would indeed raise even more, but the thing is, yeah, against a hand like that, I guess we would get called. Well, it's interesting, because I rarely even 3-bet on the turn once I get raised. Next hand, we have ace-jack on 9-7-2. I would want to check about 50% of the time here, I think. And this hand with the ace of spades, we can bet small, we can check. I'm gonna bet small. We get called. Now, with this overcard to the 9, I think we can go either quite big or check. I think solver prefers to check, but I can see both ways. And now on this river, when he checks to us again, I think he must have some sort of showdown value. So if I had a flush that I didn't bet the turn with, I would now bet, and therefore I bet this amount. And obviously, once we get raised, we have a fold. And I say obviously, but look at this. It is not that obvious. It says I made a blunder and I only scored 16% of this one. Okay, this is one I need to have a closer look at. Okay, so here I can do everything, but it prefers a bigger bet, which is interesting, because on 8 high flops, it almost exclusively goes with small bets, but well, maybe because it's the spades, so that's why it might want to go bigger, but going small is fine too. And on this turn, it just continues barreling, and it continues barreling quite big. So I knew that. I said it's either a big bet or a check. So I went with a check, but this is only the third preferred option with only 20%. So, okay. And then on this river, it wants to either jam or go bet 73%, which is what I did. So again, I didn't choose the main option, but this was not a blunder. However, when we get raised, this is the blunder. Okay, yeah, I guess because we are playing against a computer, against a solver, we should jam, although the EV loss here is not a lot, 0 to 0.86. So, I mean, it's okay. Everything else would be a mistake. But I think I was just stuck too much in real life poker now. Once you get check raised here on the river, it's hard to fold out a flush, and you normally don't get check raised by, well, maybe as a bluff, like pretty much the hand that he had, although normal players would most of the time 3-bet ace king off pre-flop. So although I scored an absolutely horrible 16% here, I think that I actually didn't play this hand as bad, but obviously I didn't play it very well either. Let's go to the next one. 10-7-6 is a board that is not great for us. A straight is possible if we want to c-bet with c-bet small. I think we will check at least 50% of the time though. With this particular hand, without a backdoor, I don't mind checking. And that's what solver does as well. When the 9 comes in, we now have a gut shot, but we lose to the 8, and we're still not doing super well. We could start betting, but I think a check here is probably still fine. And as usual, we get bailed out. We have the nuts. And we just have to figure out how much to raise now. I think something like 127. I don't really want to go all in. This would be a bit excessive given that there are only 6 big blinds in there. Maybe even this is a bit much, but I will raise to 11 and we get called by king 10. Okay, flop was fine with a check. Then on the turn, it would bet big, but checking is still absolutely fine. And on the river, yeah, look at this. I chose the only one that not recommended. However, if we look at the EV, it is identical on all the 3 of these. So I definitely want to raise, but it is gobsmacking to see that we would actually really jam for almost 100 big blinds when there are 6 big blinds in the pot. Like this just seems madness, but very, very interesting to see. Okay, next hand we have Queen Jack on King 3-3. This is kind of a range bet board, I would guess, and therefore I will range bet it. When this comes in, yeah, this is not great. He obviously now has the range advantage by calling, and also I think at this point I just have to fold, but well, look at this. This is very interesting once again. So with this hand, you would have preferred a check, but it's basically same thing. And we can see here we check about 47% of the time. So it's not a range bet board, which I would not have known, but it is probably because of the spades. And then if we continue, once he donks, we can either call or raise, never fold. But I mean, look at the differences in EV. I do not mind this fold. So then we can move on to the next one. Pocket 7s on Queen 10-4. In general, this is a board that I do want to bet quite a bit, but still probably not much more than 50%. And with this exact hand, I prefer to check, mainly because, yes, I can clear out some equity, but he connects quite well. So every middling card, if he has an ace, a king, a jack, a 9, an 8, with all of those hands that I would want to fold out, so a hand like king 9, for example, he just wouldn't fold. So I will just go for the check, and that is the main one for solver as well. And now we get this over bet, almost not quite 3x, 2.5x pot, and I think we only have this bluff catcher at this point. There is not a lot we can do. I I think this must be a fold. I would be shocked if it's not, but look at this, it is not. And we did indeed lose to 5 high. I mean, this does seem crazy, but look at the EV. Obviously, if a fold is fine, if fold or call, it's the same EV. So I think folding is fine, even though it's not the preferred option. Jack 10-4, we will c-bet quite a bit. I think again, well, if we c-bet definitely big, and because we c-bet big, this is nowhere near a range bet, but the jack and the 10 are pretty good for us. So I would guess we still c-bet close to 50%. So I will c-bet this one with the half pot bet, but I just want to see what this is. So yeah, 40% checks, and most of the time we use the 50% bet. So as I said, I'm not cheating. This is the one I would have used, and we got the fold from pocket eights. Okay, this one similar, ace king 4, 2 spades. We will, I mean, I'm not looking, I know I had this one here, but this looks to me like a range bet. The reason for that is because we have so many good hands here by raising from under the gun. We have the range advantage, we have a massive nut advantage, we can have 2 sets and top 2 pair, and he can't have top 2 sets, he can only have bottom set, and even ace king only partly, and not many ace 4, and king 4 is pretty much same as us. So I mean, he might have a little bit more king 4 than we do, but ace 4 suited is pretty much the same. Therefore we can c-bet this one small as a range bet, but look, we we scored 29% with only one bet because we went small. And with this exact hand, solver wants to go big. So let's see, actually look at this, we should go bigger. I figured because we range bet, but yes, this is the one case, but I thought this only applies to rainbow boards, that if you have an ace and a king from under the gun, you want to c-bet quite big, whereas on the button you want to even overbet on this sort of board. But it's good to know that it's also on flush draw boards where we want to go bigger. So 76% would even be here the main choice. And then look at this, even an overbet would be fine with the range. Okay, ace jack on ace king 10. This is another range bet, and because it's now 3 of them, I just don't think that we will want to go big. Also with our exact hand, which is the second best hand that's not 2 pair or better, I want to go small, and we get the fold from pocket 4s. Pocket 6s on king 10 deuce with 2 spades. We have a spade, didn't get him to fold that much. So whilst my range is happy to c-bet, but nowhere near a range bet, but still maybe 60% or something like that, this hand will want to do less than that. I can c-bet, but I think check is fine. And if he checks again now, I still think there is no point at this stage to do anything else than check. And on the river, when he checks again, I think we have to check back, because what will we get called by? So definitely checking and losing to pocket 7s. This is one of the few hands that we could maybe have gotten to fold, but yeah, c'est la vie. Ace queen 7. Okay, so this is quite similar to what we had earlier with the ace king 4 and 2 spades. So on that board we went with a big bet, and we went with the bet with most of our range. Ace queen, I would guess we will c-bet slightly less, but still probably about 80% of the time, and we will want to bet big because that's what we did there too. So that is indeed what's happening. And once we get raised, so this is another one of those where in real life I would just call here, because it's either a draw or something that really beats us. I doubt he does this with ace jack, so he does it with ace queen, ace 7, pocket 7s, and a flush draw, so obviously we're never folding here, and I will not raise. So let's just call, and that is the right play to make. And he continues, and this time he makes an overbet. And I think against real life opponents, you might start considering to fold, but against solver, we are just going to continue calling. We now have a decision, and this is a very tricky one. Again, in real life, I would just check now because I would expect him to just continue barreling with the set, but I think even against solver, I would check, because if we bet, we kind of have to go all in, and that will be too thin, because as I said, I don't think he will have check raised us with ace jack or ace 10 or something like that. So he will not call with a weaker hand, so therefore we absolutely have to check back. And he does have a set of queens, and yes, I guess that is the difference to ace king 7 or something like that he would never have pocket kings, but he will sometimes show up with pocket queens. But I am still happy with how I played this one. And just to check, yes, so it's still very, very close to a range bet. However, look at this. In the previous example with ace king 4 and a flush draw, we would have gone more for the big bet. Here the small bet is actually the one that is preferred in general, but not with this hand. With this hand, again, like, we can do anything we want, but the main size is the bet 76. Okay, off to the next one. Ace jack on ace 10 4. So this is again similar to the previous ones, but now the second card is even lower, so he has even more middle set than he did with a ace queen export, and obviously a lot more than he had on ace king 4. So we have aces and tens, he has tens and fours. We both have ace 10 suited, we both have ace 4 suited, we both have ace 10 offsuit. So we do not have a lot of nut advantage, we do have a range advantage, so we will still want to bet quite a big. But let's continue with the theme. I think this will be mainly a small bet with our range, and also ace jack is not quite as strong as ace king. He might well have ace king or ace queen in his pre-flop calling range, so I will go with a small size. We get the fold, we didn't get the max score, and look at this, it actually prefers to check, and if it bets, it still wants to bet a little bigger. However, it wants to do everything, and I think it is absolutely fine to bet ace jack. And look at this, it is nowhere near a range bet now. So once we drop to the 10, we have to check over 40% of our range. And if we bet, we actually still bet bigger. So this is just because on the ace queen 4 board, or ace queen 7 or whatever it was, we wanted to bet most of our range, and therefore we were able to go smaller with a c-bet. But now, because we check so much, it means that we don't bet, and look at this here, we don't bet all our weaker aces. We now want to bet a bit more polarized if we do, and that's why even ace jack only bets 54% of the time. King jack on jack 3-3, definitely not a board we want to range bet, but we do want to bet quite a bit. I would guess we will check maybe about 35 to 40%, and king jack should qualify as a bet because it is a paired board. Even though it is a flush draw board, I think the main size to use would be bet 33 with our range and with our hand. And indeed, that is the case. So check would also have been fine. Basically, it's between these two. And, well, I said 30 to 35% check. We actually check slightly more. It's over 40%. And if we bet, it's basically always the small size.
Sorry to interrupt, just a quick one. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, could you please do so? It would mean the world to me. Thank you.
Pocket 8s on King Queen 6. This is one where I think we can bet small, but we can also bet big. With our range, we will want to bet a good amount. I would say probably 70% of the time, maybe checking back 30% of the time. With this exact hand, difficult. If we had something smaller like pocket 5s or so, I would definitely say we can bet. But here, I think this is close between betting and checking. I will opt to check, and it does not like that at all. Maybe because it knew that we would turn the set, although obviously that's not the case. And on this turn, I will definitely go for value, and I think now with the 2 flush draws out there, we can go big with our set. I want to go 124, and he had ace jack. So let's see again what was the issue. So it's not a problem in terms of EV to check. However, it did like to bet, so it valued protection more than I thought that it would be worth. And let's see. Wow, this was a range bet board. I did not expect that, and we have all sizes. And the reason, let me think, well, it's the king and the queen, so we have 2 really big ones. So basically, if it's ace king, ace queen, or king queen, with all 3 of those, it is a range bet board. And well, if I had known that it's a range bet board, then I would have bet my pocket 8s, obviously. But yes, so that is why. But that is good to know. So we can just learn the heuristics that on ace king, king queen, and ace queen boards with flush draws, we will always range bet. 10s on 9-7-3. 10s is definitely the hand that will want to bet more than range. Range will want to bet maybe 70%, 65% of the time, and this hand will want to bet most of the time. And I also think that if we want to bet, we will mainly bet with a bigger size, but also with some smaller sizes. I will go with a fishy half pot size as a bit of a compromise, but still a bit on the larger side. And this was not entirely correct, but it was okay. And now we face a donk once the flush draw comes in, and I think at this point, well, obviously we're never folding. We can raise. Question is, what would we raise? I mean, 8-6 gets there. I think we have to be careful. We're nowhere near nutted, so we just call. And with this queen, once he checks, we almost always have the best hand. I think he might be trapping, but it's unlikely, so we should have the best hand. Against a passive opponent, I would go for a thin value bet. Can we go for a thin value bet here? We would have to go half pot, but I think we're just too strong to not go for it, even though we are in position, and we would be absolutely gutted if we got check raised, but I think we have to go for it, and indeed we did well, so I'm pleased about that. And on the flop, it would have preferred the check, but only just over what I did, and then it would have actually preferred the smaller size over the bigger one, but that's fine. Let me just see if I was right here. I said we would check about 35 to 40%. We actually checked 46.7%, but with this hand we would check a little less, so that is all fine. Let's do 2 more hands. So here we can, well, first of all, what does our range want to do on this board? I think it wants to bet quite often, and ace deuce does benefit. We could get hands to fold like ace 4, ace 7, ace 8, something like that. If we fold out a lot of equity from a hand like queen jack or like even 9-7, that would be great. So I would go for a bet, and I think most of the time we want to go with a small size. So that is correct. We get called. We do not pick up any equity. The queen is better for our range than for his. However, at this point, I don't know know if we should really go for the bet. I think there's merit in going for the bet because we could fold out hands like 6s, 7s, 8s or something like that now, or 4s and 3s even. But the thing is, if we bet, we really have to bet big, and if we bet big, I think that we would want a bit more equity than we have, so therefore I will just check. And now he checks the river. Do we have any showdown value? What he could have called with something like King Jack, but that's kind of it. Like we really do not have much showdown value. But the thing is, we don't represent that much after we check the turn. So we could, if we go, we have to go 73%. Think I do not want to do that. I will just check and look at this. So here on the flop, we want to bet quite a bit. I thought we would bet even slightly more than we would, but would bet small most of the time, and ace deuce is in that range of the small bets on the turn. Check, but if we wanted to continue, that's fine too. And I thought we would continue big, but I guess because the board is paired, we could go for small value here and go a little smaller with a queen, for example. See on the river, I was very tempted to go with a 73, so it's quite unfair to give me such a bad score, but the thing is, it's not actually a blunder. And look at the EV, 0.12 and 0. So that's basically exactly the same. Last hand of the day, King Jack on Jack 6-5 monotone board. So on these boards, if we bet, we want to c-bet very small, and we want to c-bet maybe 50%, 55% of our range. And King Jack could go either way. We can get called by a lot worse. If I had ace Jack, I would bet. King Jack is a bit of a cuspy hand, but I think I will just bet it. That is the main thing. Once the 4 flush comes on board, I think don't have to talk much about it. This is obviously a check. And now he overbets this river. What did he call with? I mean, he had a lot of spades when he called there. He might have called with some sets, although he should have fast played most of them. And he would never do this with Queen Jack or Jack 10 or something like that. He would not overbet it. So basically we would have to find some bluffs. So what would the bluffs be? Well, 7-8 is not a bluff. 3-4 is not a bluff. So all those are straights, and he probably wouldn't do that with a straight. They can turn something like pocket 8s or a weaker Jack or a 9 or a 6 or something like that into a bluff. And I think because of that we can go either way. I will just fold, but I think it doesn't really matter. And we did get everything right, and you see he actually did that with a set. Now I didn't think, I don't know, is that a bluff? Don't really understand if this is value or a bluff. Maybe you can enlighten me on that.
So how did you do? Did you try to score yourself a little bit? If you enjoyed this sort of content, then you're in luck, because I'm going to do this much more, probably even in live sessions where I'll just sit down and study a specific spot, and you can be a fly on the wall and try to solve it with me. And in the meantime, if you want to do this yourself and you don't have GTO Wizard yet, you're also in luck, because I can give you a link. It is in the description below, and there you can get 10% off your first purchase of GTO Wizard.